I often tell students when I visit my alma mater or when I speak to young entrepreneurs looking for the secret sauce of success, something that sounds completely counterintuitive. I look them in the eye and I say, I wish upon you ample doses of pain and suffering. Most people recoil. They think I'm joking, but I am dead serious. Character is not built on the sunny days when the stock price is at an all-time high and everyone is calling you a visionary. Character is forged in the fire of near extinction. It is built when you are 30 days away from bankruptcy, when your products are being rejected by the market, and when the physics of the problems you are trying to solve seem to laugh in your face. That is the state of mind you must understand to appreciate where we are today. We find ourselves at a moment in history that is both exhilarating and, quite frankly, terrifying. I see the headlines, I see the excitement over Blackwell, and I see the world clamoring for more and more compute. But I want to give you a warning. I want to tell you the truth about the frontier we are currently crossing. People look at NVIDIA and they see a company that is firing on all cylinders. But if you look closer, if you look into the eyes of our engineers and the heart of our supply chain, you will see a reality that the world is not yet ready to hear. We are exhausted. This exhaustion isn't just physical tiredness. It is the result of pushing against the very limits of what is possible in the physical world. For 30 years, we lived under the comfort of Moore's Law. We expected things to get faster and cheaper just by the passing of time. But that era is over. General-purpose computing has run out of steam. We are at the end of the road for the traditional way of building computers. To go further, we had to reinvent everything. We had to rethink the transistor, the chip, the system, the software, and the very way electricity moves through a data center. Blackwell is the culmination of that struggle. It is the most ambitious project in the history of this company, and perhaps in the history of modern computing, but building it has required a level of intensity that is unsustainable for the old world. When I say we are exhausted, I am signaling that the transition to accelerated computing is no longer an option. It is a survival mandate. We are running as fast as we can just to keep up with the demands of an AI revolution that is consuming intelligence at an exponential rate. You have to understand the first principles of what we do. We don't just build chips. We build the engines of a new industrial revolution. In the last industrial revolution, the raw material was water and steam, and the output was mechanical power. In this new revolution, the raw material is data and electricity, and the output is intelligence. This intelligence is being manufactured in AI factories. And just like the factories of the 19th century, these factories are hungry. They are demanding. When we designed Blackwell, we weren't just looking to make a faster GPU. We were looking to solve an impossible equation. How do you increase performance by orders of magnitude while the laws of physics are trying to shut you down? How do you manage the heat? How do you manage the interconnect? We had to move away from thinking about the computer as a box on a desk or a blade in a rack. Today, the entire data center is the computer. The network is the computer. But this shift comes at a price. The complexity of what we are doing is so high that there is no margin for error. We are operating on a knife's edge. I often think back to the early days, back to Denny's. Chris, Curtis, and I would sit there for hours, refilling our coffee, trying to figure out how to bring 3D graphics to the mass market. I was a dishwasher and a waiter there before we started the company. That job taught me humility. It taught me that no job is beneath you. It taught me how to work under pressure in a hot, chaotic environment. People ask me how I handle the stress of leading NVIDIA during this AI explosion. I tell them it's no different from being a busy waiter at Denny's on a Saturday night. You just have to keep moving. You have to be efficient. You have to anticipate the needs of the customer before they even know they have them. That Denny's mentality is what saved us when the Riva 128 was our last hope. It's what saved us when we bet the entire company on CUDA back in 2006. For 10 years, the market told us we were wrong. The analysts said nobody would ever use a GPU for general computing. Our stock price languished. We were exhausted then too. We were pouring billions of dollars into a dream that looked like a hallucination to everyone else. But we stayed the course because we believed in the first principles. We knew that the CPU was hitting a wall. We knew that parallel processing was the future of human knowledge. Now that future has arrived, and it has arrived with a vengeance. The demand for Blackwell is so great that it is straining the very fabric of global logistics. This is the warning I have for the industry. We cannot continue to work the way we used to. We cannot rely on incrementalism. We are at a point where the only way forward is a total transformation of our infrastructure. I've always maintained a flat structure at NVIDIA. I don't have a lot of middle management. I have 50 direct reports. People think that's crazy. They ask, Jensen, how do you manage 50 people? The answer is, I don't manage them. I empower them. We operate as a single organism. In a world that is moving this fast, hierarchy is a bottleneck. We need to be able to pivot on a dime. We need every single person in the company to have the context of the CEO. If you are an engineer working on a specific interconnect on the Blackwell board, you need to understand the vision of the AI factory. You need to know why that millisecond of latency matters to the future of generative AI. We seek out the hardest problems. We look for the things that, if solved, would change the world, but are so difficult that most companies would never even attempt them. That is the NVIDIA way. We choose to suffer through the difficult engineering because that is where the value is created. If it were easy, someone else would have done it already. But I see the fatigue in the ecosystem. I see the cloud service providers, the developers, the sovereign nations. Everyone is trying to grasp the scale of what is happening. We are building a new layer of reality. We are building the nervous system of an artificial intelligence that will eventually assist us in solving every major problem facing humanity, from climate change to drug discovery. But we are doing it at a pace that is breathtaking. The iPhone moment of AI happened with ChatGPT, but Blackwell is the infrastructure that makes that moment permanent and scalable. However, we have to be honest about the cost, not just the financial cost, but the cognitive load on our society and our engineers. We are pushing the boundaries of material science. We are pushing the boundaries of software complexity. And yes, we are exhausted because we are doing the work of a century in a decade. I remember the feeling of being 30 days from bankruptcy. That feeling never really leaves you. Even now, with all our success, I wake up every morning with a sense of urgency. I don't wake up thinking about how much we've won. I wake up thinking about what could go wrong. I think about the next bottleneck. I think about the next impossible physics problem. This paranoia is actually a form of resilience. It keeps us sharp. It keeps us from becoming complacent. In this era, if you are not running, you are being eaten. There is no middle ground. The transition from the era of software that people write to the era of software that data writes is the most profound shift in my lifetime. It changes the nature of work. It changes the nature of the company. It changes the nature of the computer itself. The reason Blackwell is so critical and the reason the warning of exhaustion is so real is that we are no longer just accelerating applications. We are accelerating the creation of knowledge. When a researcher uses a Blackwell cluster to simulate a new protein or a weather pattern or a fusion reactor, they are doing in weeks what used to take lifetimes. The exhaustion of the hardware and the teams building it is the friction of moving humanity into a higher gear. I want you to think about the first principles of your own work. What are you building? Are you just making a better version of yesterday? Or are you building something that has never existed before? To do the latter, you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to look like a fool for a decade, as we did with CUDA. You have to be willing to endure the pain and suffering that I wish upon all of you, because on the other side of that exhaustion is the breakthrough. We are currently retooling the world's trillion-dollar installed base of data centers. This is not a small task. It's like replacing the engines of every airplane in the sky while they are all in mid-flight. That is what the transition to Blackwell represents. We are moving from a world where computers are tools to a world where computers are partners. This requires a level of resilience that most organizations aren't built for. They are built for stability. They are built for quarterly increments. NVIDIA is built for the storm. We thrive in the chaos of a platform shift. But even for us, this moment is different. The scale is different. The stakes are different. When I look at the future, I don't see a smooth path. I see a series of challenges that will require us to rethink everything once again. We will have to solve power delivery at a scale we've never imagined. We will have to solve the memory wall. We will have to make AI safer, more transparent, and more accessible. And we have to do it all while the world is watching, waiting for the next chip, the next breakthrough, the next keynote. The warning about Blackwell isn't that the technology won't work, it works beautifully. It is a miracle of engineering. The warning is that the world must prepare for the sheer speed of the change it brings. If you are waiting for things to slow down, if you are waiting for a return to normal, you are going to be left behind. There is no normal anymore. There is only the accelerated future. This is why I tell our team to run, don't walk. If you walk, you are a target. If you run, you are a pioneer. But running at this pace for this long is what leads to that feeling of being spent. Yet, it is a productive exhaustion. It is the exhaustion of an athlete who has given everything on the field. It is the exhaustion of an artist who has finally finished their masterpiece. I think about the un-CEO philosophy I try to live by. I don't have a corner office. I don't have a mahogany desk. I move around. I sit with the engineers. I want to be where the problems are. I want to feel the heat of the servers. I want to understand why a certain compiler isn't optimizing the way it should, because the details are where the revolution lives. You cannot lead a revolution from 30,000 feet. You have to be in the trenches. And in those trenches, you see the truth. You see that the impossible is just a word for something that hasn't been broken down into its first principles yet. Blackwell was impossible 2 years ago. Today it is a reality, but the effort it took to bridge that gap has left us changed. It has forced us to evolve faster than we ever thought possible. I want to share with you how we think about the next steps, how we take this exhaustion and turn it into the fuel for the next leap. It starts with a fundamental realization about the nature of the work we have ahead of us. We are not just building a product, we are building a legacy of human capability. Every Blackwell rack we ship is a contribution to the collective intelligence of our species. That is a heavy responsibility, and it is one that we do not take lightly. We take this responsibility seriously because we know that the demand for intelligence and the demand for energy are currently in a tug of war. This is the heart of why we feel the weight of the moment. People ask me, Jensen, if we are exhausted, why not slow down? Why not let Moore's law take its natural, albeit slower, course? The answer is simple. The world cannot afford to wait. The challenges we face, biological, environmental, and economic, are moving at their own exponential speeds. If we do not provide the computational power to match those challenges, we are effectively choosing to fall behind. The truth about Blackwell is that it isn't just a chip, it is the first true platform for the era of generative AI. When we look at the first principles of computing, we see that for decades we were tethered to the instruction set of the CPU. It was a serial world. But the world we live in is parallel. Nature is parallel. The human brain is parallel. Our exhaustion comes from the sheer effort of bending the entire industry away from that serial legacy and toward a parallel future. We are rewriting libraries that have existed for 40 years. We are re-engineering the networking protocols that hold the internet together. I want to talk to you about the concept of sovereign AI. This is a vision that keeps me up at night, and it is one of the reasons the pressure on our team is so immense. In the past, countries exported their raw materials and imported finished goods. But in the age of AI, your most valuable raw material is your data, the collective knowledge, culture, and history of your people. If you send that data to a foreign land to be processed and then buy the intelligence back, you are giving away your sovereignty. Every nation needs its own AI factory. Every culture needs its own digital intelligence. Blackwell is the engine that allows a nation to build its own future on its own terms. But building these factories is an Olympian feat. We are moving from air-cooled racks to liquid-cooled systems because the density of computation is so high that air can no longer carry the heat away. Think about that first principle. We are now computing at a level where the atmosphere itself is an insufficient heat sink. We have to use the properties of water to keep the dream alive. This requires a level of plumbing, engineering, and data center design that didn't exist 5 years ago. This is the warning I speak of. The complexity is rising so fast that if you are not deeply integrated, if you do not understand the full stack from the transistor to the software, you will be overwhelmed. I see this in the eyes of our partners. They are racing to keep up, and I tell them, run, don't walk, because the gap between those who harness this power and those who do not is becoming a canyon. We have entered the era of physical AI. This is the next great frontier. Until now, AI has been largely confined to a screen. It's been about text, images, and code. But the next wave of AI will understand the laws of physics. It will be able to move through the world. It will be the brain of robots, of autonomous factories, of self-driving cars that actually work with the nuance of a human driver. To achieve physical AI, we need Omniverse. We need a way to train these AIs in a digital twin of the world before we ever let them into the physical world. This gym for robots is one of the most complex software undertakings in human history. It requires simulating light, sound, gravity, and the atomic properties of materials in real time. Why do we do this? because we cannot afford to fail in the physical world. We must fail 1 billion times in the simulation so that we can succeed once in reality. This brings me back to the idea of resilience. Many people see NVIDIA's success as a straight line. It wasn't. It was a series of zigzags and near-death experiences. There were times when the industry thought we were irrelevant. There were times when our competitors had more resources and more people, but they didn't have our desire for suffering. They didn't have our willingness to stick with a problem for 20 years before it paid off. Our flat structure is designed to facilitate this. In most companies, information has to travel up a ladder, get filtered, and then travel back down. By the time the decision is made, the world has changed. At NVIDIA, we operate at the speed of light. If a problem arises in a fab in Taiwan, I want to know about it at the same time the engineer on the floor knows about it. We don't have time for the politics of reporting. We only have time for the truth, and the truth is often uncomfortable. The truth is that we are pushing our suppliers, our customers, and ourselves to the very brink of what is sustainable. But look at what we are achieving. We are seeing drug discovery move from a process of guess and check to a process of simulate and know. We are seeing the possibility of a carbon-neutral future through the optimization of every power grid on the planet. We are seeing the democratization of creativity, where anyone with an idea can bring it to life, regardless of their technical skill. The exhaustion I mentioned is the price of admission for this future. It is the friction of the old world being ground away by the new. Blackwell is the tool that performs that grinding. It is a terrifyingly powerful instrument. It is the culmination of everything we learned at Denny's, everything we learned during the Riva days, and everything we learned when we were the only ones who believed in CUDA. I want to leave you with a thought about your own journey. Don't seek the easy path. Don't seek the job with the most stability and the least stress. Seek the problems that make you feel exhausted. Seek the challenges that require you to reinvent yourself every single day. Because that is where the growth is. That is where the character is built. If you find yourself in a moment where you feel like you are 30 days from bankruptcy, either literally or metaphorically, don't panic. Use that urgency. Let it sharpen your focus. Let it strip away everything that doesn't matter. We are at the dawn of the most transformative decade in human history. The new industrial revolution is not coming. It is here. Blackwell is the first of many steps into a world where intelligence is abundant, where it is a utility like electricity. But this utility must be built with care, with humility, and with a relentless focus on the first principles of what makes us human. The logical conclusion of all this work is not just a faster computer. It is the liberation of human potential. When we no longer have to spend our lives on the mundane, the repetitive, and the solvable, we can finally focus on the impossible. We can focus on the big questions. We can focus on exploring the stars, curing the incurable, and understanding the very nature of consciousness. This is the vision. This is why we run. This is why we endure the exhaustion. We are building the foundations of a future that our children will take for granted, just as we take for granted the electricity that lights this room. But we must never forget the fire it took to get here. I want to thank you for being on this journey with us. To the developers, the dreamers, the engineers who are up late at night working on a line of code or a circuit design, I see you. I know how you feel. We are in this together. Before I leave you today, if you found value in this vision, I invite you to subscribe and like this video. It helps us share this message of accelerated computing with the rest of the world. And please, if you have questions about Blackwell, about the future of AI, or about how we handle the pressure at NVIDIA, leave them in the comments below. I promise you I will be reading them and I will respond to them as quickly as I can. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you are building. The future isn't something that happens to us. It is something we craft with our own hands, our own minds, and our own resilience. It is a long road and we are all tired, but the destination is worth every ounce of effort. Run, don't walk. Thank you. Thank